You didn't lose them. You outgrew them. And somewhere deep inside, you already knew that. The silence after they left wasn't emptiness, it was space. Space your evolution demanded. But here's what nobody tells you about growth. It's not always celebrated. Sometimes it's punished. Sometimes the people who once called you brother start calling you cold, distant, arrogant. Stay with me, because what I'm about to tell you will change how you see every relationship in your life. There's a particular kind of loneliness that doesn't come from being alone. It comes from sitting in a room full of familiar faces, people you've known for years, and feeling like a stranger in a foreign country. You understand the language, but you no longer speak it. That's not depression. That's not antisocial behavior. That is evolution making itself known through your discomfort. The Sigma man doesn't make a scene when he outgrows a circle. He doesn't announce it. He doesn't post about it. He simply drifts, quietly, deliberately, like a ship that knows its destination and no longer needs the harbor that once gave it shelter. Not every door needs to be slammed. Some just need to be closed, permanently, and with zero explanation. You start to notice the signs. The conversations that used to last hours now feel like obligations. The jokes feel shallow. The ambitions they share, if they share any at all, feel suffocating in their smallness. And you feel guilty for this, because you were raised to be loyal. You were raised to stay. But what if loyalty to mediocrity is the most expensive mistake a man can make? Here's the psychological truth they never taught you in school. Every version of you that evolves requires a new environment. Not wants, requires. The caterpillar does not return to its old leaf after the cocoon. The lion does not go back to where he was a cub to prove his strength. Growth has a biological requirement for new territory. Your relationships are environmental. They either accelerate you or they anchor you. There is no neutral ground. And here's the pattern. The most successful men throughout history understood. The moment your standards rose, your circle shrank. Every single time, without exception. The more seriously you take your purpose, the more selectively you'll guard your presence. This is not cruelty. This is calibration. When you started waking up at 5 a.m., who texted you at midnight to just hang? When you started tracking your nutrition, who showed up with a pizza and an attitude when you declined? When you started reading, who mocked you for being too serious? The same people who would celebrate your mediocrity are threatened by your ascension, not because they're evil, because your discipline is a mirror they cannot face. And a man who cannot be diminished will always be perceived as a threat by those who have chosen smallness. Happening beneath the surface. When your old circle falls away, you will feel a pull, a gravitational force to fill that space immediately, to replace the void with noise, with new connections, with anything that numbs the quiet. Resist it. Because in that silence is where your most dangerous transformation is happening, and dangerous in the best possible way. The man who can sit with himself, without distraction, without validation, without an audience, becomes something most men will never be: self-contained. A man who needs no applause is a man who cannot be controlled. This is the phase where you build things, where you study things, where you develop skills so sharp that when the right people eventually arrive, and they will arrive, you won't be a man looking for a seat at the table. You will be the man who built the table. The hidden truth about upgrading your environment is this: you don't find a better circle. You become someone worthy of one. And then that circle finds you, because excellence has a frequency, and only those operating at that frequency can hear it. Let's get concrete. Because philosophy without application is just poetry for men who never change. The discipline of solitude is not isolation. It is strategic withdrawal for the purpose of internal construction. Here is how the high-value man uses this phase. First, he identifies what he is building, not in abstract terms, specifically, a skill, a body, a business, a mindset. something tangible that transforms time alone into compounding capital. Second, he ruthlessly protects his energy. Every hour is audited. Every relationship is evaluated by a single question. Does this pull me forward or pull me back? There is no emotional charity given to those who drain, regardless of history. Third, he lets his results speak. In a world addicted to noise and performance, the Sigma man's silence becomes his loudest statement. While others announce their plans, he executes his. While others perform growth, he embodies it. The man who moves in silence builds in dimensions others cannot see, until suddenly they cannot ignore. Fourth, he redefines respect. Old friends who once defined respect as your constant availability will eventually face your undeniable transformation. At that point, one of two things happens. They rise to meet you, or they reveal, finally, that they never truly supported your becoming. Either outcome is a gift. This is the part of the journey most men are not prepared for. The transformation is not just external. The bank account, the body, the achievements, those are symptoms. The real revolution is internal. You are becoming a man whose identity is not defined by who recognizes him. A man who does not require validation from an audience that lacks the eyes to see his vision. You are becoming sovereign. And sovereignty is terrifying to people who have built their entire identity on keeping you familiar, on keeping you accessible, on keeping you the version of yourself that needed them. The silent power you're developing right now is not about cold indifference. It is about unshakable self-possession, the ability to walk into any room and operate from a position of complete internal authority, regardless of external conditions. The most powerful version of you is the one that no longer adjusts itself to fit the comfort of smaller men. This is not arrogance. Arrogance requires an audience. What you are building is something quieter and far more deadly to mediocrity. It is certainty. The certainty of a man who knows exactly who he is, what he is building, and why no distraction, social, emotional, or psychological, is worth the cost of losing that momentum. So let them call it coldness. Let them call it arrogance. Let them call it whatever name makes your growth easier for them to dismiss. While they talk about the man you used to be, you will be silent. Focused. Building. Becoming something they do not yet have a word for. You are not losing people. You are being filtered by your own evolution, and only the ones strong enough to grow with you will make it through. Everyone else was always just a season. And seasons change. So do you. Silence is not emptiness. It is the sound of a man building his empire.